Big time programs have to have big time resources, and Auburn seems ready to compete.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie Five, and we are ready to get after it. If you want to be a big-time program, you got to have big-time resources, and I think Auburn has positioned themselves to the point where I think you can compete with the top of the top as far as NIL and total roster salary goes, which is wild to be discussing when you're talking about college football. We'll talk about the ins and outs of how that works, how alignment is vital to be able to make this happen. Everybody pulling in the same direction. And then there's several other players that have entered the portal. We'll discuss those as well. But let's jump right into it. Big shout out to Nathan King with 247 Sports who put this out there that Auburn, not necessarily under Alex Golesh, but Auburn for Alex Golesh, will be positioned to be able to attack this 2020, I guess it would be the 2026 roster. How does that work? 26, 27? Is that how that would work? The 2026, 2027 roster, and be able to position themselves to go up with the top, be a top 10 roster as far as total salary going, be in that $30 million range, which again, if you want to be a top 10 team, if you want to be one of those playoff teams, more than likely you're going to have to spend like them as well. Not only play and execute, but you're going to have to spend as well. It just is what it is in college football today. And that $30 million range would put Auburn in a very prime spot to be able to attack the transfer portal, attack high school recruiting, and be able to fill holes now and build towards the future. I know everybody's got a ton of questions like, how does that $30 million work? How does that work? I thought we had a salary cap. How does that whole thing play out? Well, you're absolutely right. There is a salary cap off of rev share. Okay. Rev share is that pool of money that everybody has. Okay. And Auburn has that just like everyone else. And you can't go above it. You can go below it if you want to, but you can't go above it. Dollars allocated for rev share. And what that typically means is there's not really an exchange of services outside of just football. It's basically a salary. Hey, I'm here. I'm a football player. You're paying me X amount. I don't necessarily have to go do photo shoots. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. This is my quote unquote salary for performing football for this university. Okay. The problem with that is it's a finite amount. Okay. So if you just operate off of your rev share, it's going to be tough to compete. Yeah, you'll be able to get some players here or there, but if you really want to compete at the highest of levels, you got to figure out ways to go beyond that salary cap. So how do you do that? There was this huge controversy last summer about third-party NIL deals. It was really when this rev share thing kicked in. Who's doing it right? Who's doing it wrong? Who's making the right decisions? Did John Cohen make the right decision? Is he right? Is everybody else wrong? And that's whenever the ball started rolling on trying to figure out how to go above and beyond what you get from rev share. Now, there was also a lot of controversy around this, moving this home game to Atlanta. Okay. And I'm going to try to break down the third-party NIL deals in a couple of different directions. Okay. So the first thing is third-party NIL deals. There was controversy on, does it count against or doesn't it count against the salary cap. Okay. So let's just say our salary cap is $15 million. Does a third party NIL deal count as part of that $15 million? The answer is no. What initially Auburn thought was, and what Auburn continues to believe is, you just can't guarantee those numbers as part of an NIL deal before a high school kid gets to Auburn. So you can't put that stuff in writing. That's what Auburn believes, and that's what Auburn is going to continue to do. Right or wrong, that's the direction Auburn's going in. But so if you go out and you get XYZ sponsorship for $100,000 a year, that does not count against the salary cap. That's over and above. Okay. So this game that was moved from our home game with Baylor on the home and home to Atlanta, the sponsorship money that's guaranteed right off the bat is $4 million. Okay. So that's $4 million now on top of the rev share, not in replacement of. Okay. So let's say 15 million is rev share. You got 4 million on top of that. So now you're at 19 million. Okay. Now, if Auburn sells their full allotment of tickets, which is almost a guarantee, they get another $4 million. So now you're at $8 million over the salary cap. Okay. So that's 15 million plus 8. Now you're at 23. We're doing math, baby. We're doing math right now. Okay. Now there's even more earning opportunities from that particular game. And I think it could cap out as much as $12 million. That is with guys doing social media posts, appearances, commercials, things like that. There's other earning opportunities even above that 8 million. But let's just stop at that 8 million. Okay. This is why that 8 million is so important. Okay. So you can't just willy-nilly throw millions of dollars in quote unquote NIL over and above the rev share cap, because every single dollar that is considered NIL above and beyond the rev share cap has to be approved by NIL Go, the NCAA clearinghouse, whatever we want to call it. It has to go through that algorithm and whatnot that checks the value to make sure that it's justifiable. Okay. So it's not necessarily a guarantee that every single NIL deal you throw out there is going to be approved. Okay. A lot of times the lower value ones, the $10,000 deals, the $5,000 deals, those go through fairly easy. The ones that are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars have a lot more scrutiny and are under a microscope a lot more. So getting $8 million from this game already approved, this doesn't have to go through. It's already been approved. So getting an $8 million essentially dropped in your lap that you can add over and above the rev share cap is invaluable in today's game. That's why it was I know it's an emotional, tough move for Auburn to take away that home game, but why, unfortunately, in today's game, you can't hardly pass up those opportunities. So now Auburn gets 4 million of that up front. So now Alex Golesh has at least $4 million free and clear above and beyond the salary cap to go out and add players. Now, sources were reporting that the number combined between the rev share and NIL is going to be upwards of 30. Well, we've only talked about, like $23 million. There's still another $7 to $8 million to go. That's where the rest of these NIL deals come into play. And you have to be aligned and you have to be very, very organized to be able to make that happen. And we're going to talk about that piece here in just a second. But before we do that, I want to give a quick shout out to Inspiration AI. We've been talking about this company for a while. Auburn guy, you need to check them out. Look, they have this is part of their Ops Hub platform. They have several different several different options, kind of out of the box options. This one's Ops Hub. Okay. It's a one-stop command center for multi-location operators. This isn't just your checklist tool, okay, on your phone. You're talking about scheduling and labor planning. You're talking about daily and weekly task management. You're talking about store performance and finance views, employee overhead, labor cost visibility, daily, weekly, monthly analytics across all your locations. Okay. How many spreadsheets do you have open to be able to manage all this stuff, and you're doing it manually? Why not have a solution that does it automatically? And look, if the out of the box solution doesn't quite fit you 100% in what you do, they can customize it. They can customize it to fit your needs. I'm telling you, you need to take advantage of AI outside of just Chat GPT and Grok off of Twitter. Give these guys a shout. Go to info@inspiration-ai.com for a demo, and definitely support them and show them some love. We'll be back right after this. Alignment is so vital for that over and above that we're talking about. Yeah, you're going to luck up, and if you're working hard, you're going to get these big, you're going to get these big deals occasionally that go along with games or things like that. You got Nike that can't do, Nike is everybody's, they sponsor just about everybody. So it's not like Nike can just decide they're going to pump a bunch of money in. But if you have a superstar athlete like Cam Coleman, you noticed he had a Nike commercial recently. If you have a superstar like Cam Coleman that can justify the deal, justify the money as far as from Instagram following and social media followers and things like that, your big brand apparel partner can help also in NIL. But above that, you got to have everybody pulling in the same direction. Okay. And this is what you have to have, because you can't automatically guarantee every NIL deal is going to be approved. What you have to have is you got to have a pile of guys, okay, a pile of businesses, a pile of business owners. Doesn't have to necessarily be guys or girls, business owners that are essentially pledging a pool of money, okay, so that you can then take from that pool of money, get it approved over time to be able to get it to these particular athletes. Okay. So it's not so much as, okay, it's a easy transaction where I'm going to give you $250,000 and you're going to go give that to, Cam Coleman or Jeremiah Cobb or whoever. Okay. It's not as easy as that. You got to have folks that are patient. You got to have folks that are willing to buy in, that are willing to wait and let those things go through, and maybe not necessarily get the exchange right off the bat. In other words, like, you may not get the performance of what you paid for like immediately, and you got to be okay with that. So it may be a while before you get the service that you paid for from that particular athlete, whether it be from a commercial, an event, whatever. You just have to be okay with that. And I think that is a huge challenge. It's easy to go out and sell. You're going to pay us X. We're going to give you Y. That's easy. What's tough is, look, we need you to promise us X. We don't know exactly when we're going to get Y, and we don't know exactly what X is going to be. We just need you to hang in there when we need you, and then we'll get it pushed through, and we'll get it to the player. And you got to just be okay with that. And when they pick up the phone and say, boom, here it is, we're ready to go, the exchange happens. So that's how that you feel that gap up to the 30 million. It's not easy. It's not the same thing as like there's just this huge bank account. There's this huge escrow account that they're pumping funds into, and then they're just pulling it out when they need it. That would be easy. It's way more. It's way tougher. They're having to restructure media rights deals. They're having to restructure all kinds of things to be able to manage this over and above the rev share, and even over and above your guaranteed deals to be able to be competitive. You're going to have your USCs and maybe even your Texas and your Ohio States. You're going to have those guys that it's going to be easy no matter what. They're going to be probably closer to $40 million rosters, but you don't have to be there to be elite. Just look at Indiana. Indiana doesn't have anywhere near $40 million in payroll, and they just took down Ohio State, the richest roster in college football. Okay? So you don't have to be there. What you have to do is you got to have people that are aligned, that are willing to spend and willing to spend when you need it. And then you have to be able to evaluate and get the right guys and not just go reckless with the money that people have pledged to continue to bring in guys that don't produce. And that's what Golesh talked about a lot yesterday is, look, we have all the resources in the world. We have the top of the top resources from an NIL perspective. And now what we have to do is we have to honor those. We have to go find those guys that can produce at a high level to honor the money commitment that all these people have worked so hard to pump back into this program. So from a resource perspective, Auburn could not be in a better spot. That's why I think this job should be and was really attractive. So now Coach Golesh has all of the tools in the tool shed. Now you just got to go out when the portal opens, be prepared, go out and get your guys. Look at the roster that you have right now. We're going to talk about roster retention because you've got some players already leaving. Look at the roster right now and decide who has earned, and this is what he talked about this as well, who has earned the money that they're being paid? Who has value enough to pay more to retain? Those are the conversations that are being had right now every single day. He's mentioned that he has talked with every single player just about, and sometimes it'll be 20 minutes, and sometimes it'll be a couple hours, and sometimes you don't get done until like 1 a.m. That's what has to happen right now, between right now and January 2nd. And it has to be happening, at a extremely, extremely high level. So let's talk about several guys that are out. You've had a number. You had a couple yesterday too that have gone into the portal. So far, you got Jackson Arnold. Look, I hate to say it, but that's a big chunk of money freed up. That is a large chunk of money that's freed up now that can be put elsewhere. Perry Thompson, I know that one hurts. That was a big one for us. That was a big flip for us, for Auburn. And it just hasn't worked out yet. And I don't know that it's of any fault of Perry. It's the situation around, everything that happened under the previous staff. Horatio Fields, that was another one that maybe you expected to come back this year with a medical red shirt. But for whatever reason, it's not going to work out here. So he's out. Damari Alston, that was not a surprise. He went into the portal in the middle of the season. Rayon Strader, that was another one that you thought was a big get, probably pretty expensive. That is, didn't play quite that much at all. Who's going elsewhere? Amon Lane Gaines, man, I hate it for that kid. He had the worst luck as far as injuries go. He was our first commitment, I think, of the 2024 class. He was committed. This is what I think happened, and I was trying to remember the story. I think he committed to Auburn under Brian Harsin, stayed committed after the coaching change, and signed in that 2024 class. I think that's how that story went. And he just had injury after injury. Had an injury in high school, and then he had an injury here at Auburn. Just some really, really tough luck, but he's going elsewhere. Antonio Coleman is what it is, man. He had a lot of problems in high school, and all the flipping drama. And I just don't think that's going to jive with this new staff. And he was one of the first ones to go. And then Caleb Wheatland, the transfer linebacker from Maryland. I don't know that he played many snaps at all. So only a handful of those were probably higher earning guys. Okay. And then now that that's gone, that just frees up that money to be able to spend on the new guys that you bring in and go to maybe even retaining some guys. So we still have it's December 9th. So you have roughly 3 weeks, I guess, 3-ish weeks until the portal opens. And I assume you're going to have a trickle of guys entering from Auburn over the next 3 weeks. And then the bigger chunk is probably going to go in, after Christmas, that week between Christmas and New Year. And then it's going to be time to roll. And luckily, Auburn's positioned themselves from a resource standpoint to be able to compete with the best of the best in the portal. So we'll see how these guys can make it work. Let me know if you have questions. I hope I explained the whole format of rev share, NIL over rev share, and how those dollars free up. They don't count against each other. Okay. So, and how NIL dollars can free up rev share dollars and vice versa. If I didn't, let me know in the comments and I'll try to clarify. Guys, I really appreciate it. Don't forget, if you need a good realtor in the Auburn, Opelika area, hit me up. It doesn't matter if it's to build, buy, or invest. I'm your guy. I would love to help. We'll be back again soon. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.